So tell us a little bit about your channel. How long have you been on YouTube? And let us know what you've been up to.
So my channel is Audrey's Little Farm, and I teach about gardening and raising chickens, mostly for the beginner chicken keeper, beginner gardener. I do go a little bit more in depth, but majority of audience is beginners for sure. And so I started, for the past 2 years, I've been pretty serious on YouTube. I would say like in the last year is when I've more dove into trying to grow the channel. But I started a blog in 2018, and that became my full-time income. And then that's when I started doing YouTube as well.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so you're still doing the blog.
Yep. So that kind of is running on autopilot right now, and my focus has been YouTube, trying to learn how to grow that.
Gotcha. Okay, so
And I am a
blog's on
VRA
autopilot.
student.
Awesome. So fired up to have you here. And what is a question that you have today?
I think my biggest thing that I want help with on YouTube is learning how to sell. I feel like I sell well, but I don't sell often, and I don't really sell intentionally. I brought up a few stats just to give you like a background. So one of my main products is a Zone 9B gardening guide, which is the zone that I live in. And that's a huge audience of mine because I talk a lot about the zone specific gardening. And so I have that guide, and I pitched it. The very first time I think I pitched it on YouTube was in January of 2022. And since then, I pitch it here and there, but it mostly is just coming up in like Google search results, the same few videos. And I get a 5% conversion rate, and I've made a little under 8,000 in the last year on that guide. And I was just looking.
Zone 9.
Zone 9B, guide. But Zone 9 gardening is essentially the same. But like Florida, Texas, Arizona, California. I'm in California, but I have people in all of those states that follow me that could use the guide.
Okay, gotcha. And so, and the way you get to it is shop. How do you get to the guide?
If you're on my YouTube channel, so like you could do it from right here on my shop, but in the actual videos that are about Zone 9, I think on my actual homepage, I have a playlist that's all about Zone 9. So it's not in every video, it's just the ones related to Zone 9. So on my actual home page, so that one right there would have it. So that very top link goes to the sales page. And so that sales page right now is converting at 5%. And that's just pretty much from Google search people, or, I pitch it casually in the videos, but I'm not really pitching the guide necessarily. And so I was just looking in July. In July, I actually didn't even do one video, I don't think, that mentioned the guide, but just from people finding me through search, it was a 3.8 conversion rate on that sales page and made a little under $500.
Yeah, that's great. And so the question is, how could we increase sales and maybe even a little bit of the sales communication and sales mindset is in terms of incorporating that on YouTube?
Right.
I love it. So, I mean, there are a couple things. I think my first thought is mindset stuff as it pertains to sales. Sales, number one, I think there's like 1% of the population that actually likes sales. And typically, it sounds like kind of a joke, but typically there's like something wrong with them. They're typically like narcissists, or there's something like, you get into psychology, like the way their brain is wired. Like the average person kind of hates sales unless they're wired a certain way. So many people watching this probably feel the same way. I don't want to be the used car salesman. I don't want to sell. I just want to be creative. And I hope my stuff just sells. So it actually is, I think, very important that we invest time, even thinking of our E to E ratio, in consuming sales material that can help shift our mindset from compassionate people that we resonate with that share similar values. I've done that over the years, and there's been anchored mindsets, which I know we should talk about tactics, but it really does start with our thinking, that have helped me. For example, to sell is to serve. That actually, when we have a product that can change someone's life, get them better results, when you can connect, I'm sure, the Zone 9B gardening materials to how that's going to have people literally be more fruitful if they're going to sell produce, like make more money. Like it's an exchange of value. Another mindset is your income is directly correlated to the amount of value you add to the marketplace. And when you have something value, a sales situation is simply exchanging something for money in this case. And what you give them, if it's more valuable than the money that they give you, then ultimately it's a bigger win for the person that you're serving. And so if you can position your marketing and your products even correlating it in sales to kind of features and benefits, we want to have just unwavering confidence that we should sell, that it's our ethical duty to sell, because you have information that other people don't know, and they need to know that information. They could even be more fruitful. They can make more money. They can have more abundance. And so it then becomes adopting the mindset of like, it's my ethical responsibility to figure out how to ethically persuade the right people, because if they don't buy this product, it's either because they're not in zone 9B. Well, you would never sell it to those people. They also don't want to take action. Well, great. They shouldn't sell that to them either. But if they're at all interested, and you know that if they don't just buy it, but implement it, it will benefit them, and that what they're getting is worth more than the money they're paying you. I'm just trying to kind of lay a foundation of some of the mindsets in terms of why you should perhaps even be louder about it. And one other interesting caveat would be, if the Bible's a big deal for me, my faith, and I'm a Christian. And so some people think, well, but sales, like, would that even be in the Bible? Would that even be, just kind of seems weird. It doesn't seem like the Christian thing to do. Well, it's actually completely a myth. It's actually, sales is not just a good idea. It's a God idea. There's a proverb that says, cursed is the person who withholds grain, which is interesting that it's an agriculture illustration, when they have grain to meet someone's need, essentially. So, and it says sells, that cursed is the person who doesn't sell their grain, as if we have something that can benefit others. And it doesn't say that we should give it away. It says cursed is the person who doesn't sell grain to those in need. And if you kind of take that back, you think about the story of Joseph with what, people watching this, whatever their backgrounds and beliefs, it's a very powerful Old Testament story in Genesis, where for 7 years, Joseph stored up grain. And then when a famine hit, it doesn't say he gave it away. There's a lot of people in the world that are like, we should just give everything away. What's fascinating is he didn't give it away. He sold it. And he first sold it for money. Then he started trading it for land and for livestock. And this was a God idea as a way of, and he actually saved a nation. He saves Egypt. Couple things. One, because he took 7 years to save up grain. This makes me think about all the blood, sweat, and tears you've put in to learn this, master this, do this. You probably aren't even charging enough. That would be, as we think about these mindsets, it can help us even think that it should probably be more than $37. Like, it should probably be $97, $197. You start thinking about what is the value of what you have? How can you communicate the value of what you have to the people that you're serving, and then have that boldness and that confidence? So those are a few things that I think are fascinating, even like the biblical theology of sales. And then finally, I think that the last thing that can happen, though, is inevitably, if you get louder and if you get bolder, there's still, as soon as you start to sell, there's pushback. And sometimes the fear we have is the more we talk about it on YouTube or the more we talk about it on social media, we may experience less friction or negative comments or whatever if we don't sell something. And because there can be some people that have the mentality that like everything should be free or whatever. And so this is why I think it's so important that we develop the mindset and belief system that brick by brick on truth, ethics, integrity allows us to have the resilience to be okay with that. Like, allows us to like not just get louder, get clearer, not pushy, but louder in your videos, more articulate and specific in your videos about educating people and pointing people to this place where you're offering this thing. And then knowing ahead of time, though, that typically the louder you get, the more pushback you will get. But ultimately, that just comes with the territory. And I like to have a view of empathy, because even, for example, you're a member of VRA. We give away a lot of free content, but we also charge for a course. And there's 5% of people that just are really upset about that. Anyone who's been in VRA sees the value of it. And there's the whole structure of money back guarantee and all this other stuff that we do just so we could be in integrity and ethics. But myself and the entire Think Media team, for sure, we get, whether it's an email or comments, and it's never that many, but it can feel like a lot, Because if you like to be liked and we're afraid of other people's opinions or just sensitive to other people's opinions, I'm just like, oh yeah, somebody sends you an email like, how dare you charge for this? You're like, because like Joseph, I spent 7 years, more than that, blood, sweat, and tears, learning this stuff, testing this stuff, building this stuff. I've made a program that is more valuable for the around $1,000, which is our special offer right now that VRA costs. Like I think about, I'm like, why aren't you complaining about college? It costs $50,000 a year to go get a digital marketing degree at a community college right now. Not even a degree, just a year of classes. Americans spend $18,000 on non-essentials. Why are you? And it's because of money mindsets typically. But all that to say is having the empathy for the pushback you may get, being okay with that if you ultimately want to make more sales. Now, I want to talk about tactics second, but I'd love some feedback. Any thoughts on money mindsets or sales mindsets? Was any of that helpful in regards to maybe how loud or how bold you are in your videos about sales?
Yeah, that was super helpful. And I love the the mindsets. And then I also love like the stories of the Bible, because that's like one of the reasons why I love following you too. I love the Christian or the shared faith. And so that was like really cool stories. But I definitely think I could tell, like, as you're talking to me, that I'm like, I definitely don't sell enough, because I'm worried of like, I don't want all my videos to seem like a sales video. So then I rarely pitch it, but when I do pitch it, it does well. And so it's just like you're saying, the more I talk about it and the louder I get, you'll get pushback, but I would also be way more profitable.
I love it. So let's talk a little bit of tactics part 2. If you're getting value too and watching this, smash like, and to give exact chapter and verse, Proverbs 11:26, people curse those who hoard grain, but they pray God's blessing on the one who is willing to sell. And so there's something powerful. And a couple other things, when we pay attention, and the transformations in the transaction. A lot of times we don't value things that are free. We download a lot of things that are free. And so when we invest in something, and that also could lead to maybe more offers that you have, other things that you develop that could be connected to you raising your price. Because if you think about an ideal customer that maybe could learn from all of the hard work and experience and things you've learned, and what transformation you could ultimately connect for them. Like some people might think it'd be outrageous to pay you $10,000 to coach them, but not really. If it's at farmers markets or the way that they sell produce or their gardens, if you can then just say, well, yeah, if I actually walk people through what I know, I could produce $20,000 of value. Well, then that would be an incredibly fair transaction, more than fair. They would have doubled their investment. If you could increase someone's business or whatever it is, you could double it or triple it, then you start, kind of reframing some of those things. The tactics, what I would encourage is, yes, talk about it more. And there's a couple things. There's 2 things. Number one is actually, I learned this from Chalene Johnson. It's funny, as we're talking about Audrey's little farm, is this concept of actually called seeding. Sometimes you don't have to sell like overtly, but you can do what's called seeding. And seeding would simply be like not actually making an offer, but talking about your product a little bit more. Like you may just say, one of the things that I talk about in my Zone 9B vegetable gardening guide is, and you talk about the importance of having a planner, or you talk about some of the aspects of what's inside of that. And I would say that it's not always like overt call to action, link in the description or something like that. And you probably noticed me doing this, or perhaps maybe do, maybe don't, but maybe I'm talking about YouTube secrets. Like I'm not saying go buy the book, but I'll hold the book up and I might say, one of the things that I talk about in YouTube Secrets, 2nd edition. And so I see that this is probably digital, right? Your product's digital.
Yeah.
But you could print it out. Like, do you have a physical version?
I do. So I printed it out and put it in a binder. So in all my videos, that's actually pretty much how I do it. So I don't say like, all I'm talking about is my guide. I'll give, like Zone 9 tips for March. And then like, I'll give a few tips and be like, but also in my guide right here, which is printed off, you can see like the exact dates that you need, blah, blah, blah. And so I do like what you just did with the book. I like hold it up
Beautiful.
and that seems like that's why I think it sells good, just kind of on autopilot. But obviously, but then I feel like I could probably actually do that with other products I have in all my other gardening videos that are not. I just kind of thought of that out loud because I have a more in general gardening guide that's for other gardeners. And maybe like in my other gardening videos, I could do the same similar thing.
Are you also building an email list?
Yeah, right now it's about 35,000 people.
How often do you email the list?
Usually every other day.
Okay, great. And so do
yeah.
you see a lot of sales coming from email?
Yes, Tripwire sells like on a daily basis. So people find me through YouTube and then, but mainly through the blog. And then that's kind of just I have some funnels that are just in place. So that's kind of an evergreen autopilot thing. But I do like, I'll physically email like real broadcasts every other day. But then I have my evergreen funnels that they go through.
And so they're
and
like
then I try to
value-based emails
yeah,
on the
I
broadcast?
give Yep. I do. So like right away they go to a Tripwire when they sign up for my email list. And that's where a majority of sales come through. I would say like 70% of the sales just go through like Tripwire sales right off the bat.
Well, when
and
you say
then
Tripwire, that's Tripwire would be a low ticket offer before
Yeah.
they bought anything.
Yep. So they I have them go to like they're free. I have a chicken keeping opt-in and a free planting schedule for gardeners. And so then the chicken keeping people go to a Tripwire page for my ebook that's offered at $9.
Yep.
Which is that one that you have pulled up. And then I have my vegetable gardening guide that like in general gardeners go to. And that's, I think, a $9 or $13 offer at the Tripwire cost. And then the Zone 9B guide is split into just like the first chunk of it, which is just a planting schedule, not all of the tactics. And that sells for $8, but they can upgrade for $19 at the
Are
Tripwire.
you, when doing broadcast emails, are you making more offers in email though?
Yes. So I try to do a like actual flash sale to my email list every other week.
Cool.
And those do pretty well.
And do you kind of use PS a lot?
Yeah, I just started actually doing like in every email now that I send a PS of like ways that I can help. And the first two is like subscribe to YouTube. That's where I'm most active right now.
Yes.
Follow me on Instagram or head to my shop and check out the digital products I have, which I also have a membership. So that's now been in my PS too.
Beautiful. Okay. I mean, just want to acknowledge like you're clearly a leader, a learner, and doing so many best practices. And so that's really inspiring. And this in general is one of the benefits of this show is there's so much you can learn, Coffee with Cannell family, from the execution here. Also, I mean, it would seem you're doing this full time under 10,000 subscribers.
Yes.
And you have the blog as well.
Yes. So the blog last year, this year, let's see, I think last September is when I became monetized. So not quite a year, but before that I was making affiliate revenue and product sales through YouTube, but just not very much. But my blog just all on its own was doing a full-time income. So then that's when I dove into YouTube. And I guess I feel like I have a good general understanding of sales and I do well at it in my email marketing and on the blog side. But for YouTube, I guess I've been in that like weird mindset of trying to grow it without selling too much because I want the channel to grow. But I've been selling some. So I guess what is the good rate? Should I be mentioning something in every video or is there a ratio like?
Well, I think so. If then we turn our attention finally as we land the plane to YouTube. When was the last time you made Zone 9B? I know you have a whole playlist, but when was the last time you made Zone 9B videos?
In June. So if you click on home of my channel, I have a whole right at the top. I have that monthly gardening tips and tasks, and I started doing that in February. I guess I missed July because we were out of town quite a bit. But March, April, May, June, I did one for each month, and those were the last ones I did specific to Zone 9.
What else around Zone 9? And so Zone 9 is the main offer that is the deepest offer you have for people, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have just majority of my audience is Zone 9. I have a blog post on Google that ranks like top 1 to 3 always on Google, and that's how majority of people find me. And so I would say 80% of my audience is just already Zone 9, and so that's my main offer as far as like what I'm trying to pitch the most often, which makes sense because I like talking about an area where I actually know what I'm talking about in.
Yep.
I don't, I don't have any idea how to grow like in the middle of Utah or Colorado or somewhere where it's cold. So I like talking about Zone 9 because it is specific to where I'm at. And I've just dove into that because that's what's been the most successful for me. Blog site and now YouTube. I'm in California.
Okay.
Central Valley. So.
Okay, great. Ranked second here with the 1 month ago. Very great. So, and then do you give a call to action to something free in this video?
I don't. I think I only just bring up I show the guide, I think at some point. I'm trying to think which spot it would be at, but I tell at the end, like throughout the video, I'll show like the guide that I have, and I kind of talk a little bit about it. And then at the end, I think I mentioned like, the link to this guide is in the description, but I don't think I call any attention to a free guide.
Okay. So, I mean, the other thing, now that we've talked so much about sales, I generally would encourage that we don't really need to sell on YouTube, that the point of YouTube would be to meet strangers, meet new people, serve current subscribers, and connect with them in such a way as to, build that connection, build know, like, and trust, and grow the channel. And I'll give you then one of my favorite frameworks that I would do to just multiply everything that you're doing. And it would be, not to sell on your videos, but to give away something free. Mm-hmm. And my favorite way to actually do that can affect the YouTube algorithm and serve the people that are watching is I do the same thing. I do typically, you could still, by the way, seed as you're doing. You could still seed the book because that's great. So from the time they meet you, kind of seed it. But the problem with just even alluding to our products is there does come a point, as you probably know, in email marketing, it's where it kind of happens, where like people in a way don't know to buy until you clearly articulate that like this is for sale and here's how you buy it. And a lot of times sales is simply explaining what it is, what the process of checking out is, etc. But saying that, here would be the framework. I love to have videos that have points, and it seems like with your chapters here, you have the same thing. Like you've got 5 tips. And what I love to do is create an irresistible lead magnet, they would be called. That would be the free gift. One question would be, you already have some, but is there something that people would love that you could give away for free that people they would love to pay money for and they would love to take action on, that would very specifically, like, do you have a Zone 9 lead magnet? I do. So it's very similar. So it's a free planting schedule, which like gives the dates. Perfect. Great answer. So we have that already. So, yes. So then what I would do is in the video, I would, let me come back to why I would put the call to action to that in the middle. And then why at the end, exactly what you're doing here, like you're serving both YouTube and building your email list, and then hopefully growing sales and growing your channel. So at the end of the video, we'll break it down. So perfect video recipe, big idea, hook, content, transition. Transition is get that call to action to another video. If you had 5 points, you have a great hook, good thumbnail, title, and everything in the beginning. Point number 1, point number 2, point number 3. Point number 5, I would recommend actually basically being another video. Rather than being a point you explain, it's a point you touch on. And you're like, so point number 5 is, and you already have these in your library, is such and such and such Zone 9 gardening. And actually, if you want to deep dive on that, click or tap the screen and I'll see you in the next one. When we transition at the end, we want to transition fast so that we can increase watch time, avoid people dropping off, have people binge videos, have people watch multiple videos of ours. Okay, fine. So that's point number 5. So rather than potentially like going super deep in point number 5, this was 5 tips for vegetable, then actually use that as a transition point. Like if it was plant varieties that thrive, if you had a video on plant varieties that thrive, you're like, some of the biggest plant varieties that thrive are strawberries, garlic, and lettuce, but actually there's 10 of them. And if you want to see my video on all 10, click or tap the screen. My name's Audrey. See you in the next one. Smash like, peace. And then it's like over, and then it's just click on that card. Okay. So then mid video, one of the points is watering schedule, right? And so you're like, and so tip number 3 is you really need to dial in your watering schedule. Now, I actually have a guide that's totally free. You could like, print it out if you want, put it on your refrigerator or whatever. I'll link to that in the description. It actually has a whole watering schedule, but here's what it is. And so weaving in an articulated pain point or solution that is your free thing into one of your points mid video, and basically doing that every video would be my dream of YouTube. So then fast forward, if we kind of dial in the fact that we are inviting people onto our email list, but we're also doing it in such a way, it's not general, it's very specific. And if it's a Zone 9 download, then that's a very specific thing. You're going to attract those people that either care or they don't. Trying to do 2 things, grow our email list, but also grow our YouTube channel. And I think that's the best way to do it. Mid video, brief call to action that is connected to one of the points, and your free thing is a solution to that. End of the video, they either already downloaded it and kept watching, or if they left, they're not there anyways, but the goal would be to just increase that view duration. And then finally, doing that 1,000 times, or as many videos as you're posting, because as we go to 20,000 subs, 50,000 subs, and you've got 100 or 200 videos in your library that people are constantly watching, then there's constant new awareness of people joining your email list, which is the best place for sales to take place, because now people have stepped over that line to that next level of trust with you. Some people just want to hang out on the YouTube channel. Great. As ad revenue and all that stuff goes up, and maybe they'll want to go deeper. But the people that join on the email list, and perhaps they also end up binging 5 of your videos. And so then it would just also be a matter of, if you use that kind of formula or template, and then you do it repeatedly with as good of video ideas as possible. Eventually, or imagine if that call to action was in this video, the 287,000 one, right? But eventually, out of your next 100 videos, then you've got, was there one in this 2-year-old one of any kind? I mean,
yeah. So that one was the first one I ever pitched the guide in. So that's where I think most organic sales come from, I would say.
Sales, great. And I'm saying,
yep.
In this case, I mean, you could pitch the guide, but I'd be saying pitch the free thing. I guess it's kind of the same difference, because it leads to the same direction. But that also could be the next 10, 20,000 signups organically on the other side of some great video topics. Thoughts on that?
Yeah. Would you pitch on the videos where I can specifically bring up the guide, but I can also always pitch the free planting schedule? Would you do both in the same video?
No, I'd mainly hit the free thing.
Right.
Or I'd mainly maybe seed the guide, not pitch, like do what you did, hold it up. This is what I work from, because it becomes this iconic thing that clearly people begin to see and recognize. But yeah, mainly being brief, bright, fun, and done in the video, and holding it or teaching from it or something. It could be as simple as and the first C of YouTube success is courage. I mean, you got to punch fear in the face, punch perfectionism in the face. All I did was seed it, no more call to action than that. And then perhaps mid video, first C is courage. The second C is clarity. Now, here's a couple thoughts about getting clear on your channel. But if you actually want to download a free clarity guide, there's a link in the description down below. You can fill that out. So anyways, clarity would be, and then putting that in the middle, but getting through the video, because you still want, of course, the average view duration and all of that. And so you're building your business while also building your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super helpful. So there would be no, I guess, because in all of my videos, I could always pitch one of my free sign up guides. So is that something that should always be done? Or is there a point where you want them obviously to get to the end and go to the next video, but clicking a link in the description is not necessarily bad? I mean, it's better to get them on your email list than to keep watching, or there's that fine line.
Yeah, Kyle, who I know you know well, is the producer of Think Media. And our dream and our vision is, we don't always have to include it. In some cases, we just say, what's the purpose of this video? Does it actually fit would probably be the number one question. Does it fit without being forced? And we love to make videos that maybe have no call to action, of course, except watch another video at the end. They lead to some other video. But if it fits, I think is a big key. And I would say that oftentimes it's more of an ongoing conversation of, to your point, you deeply care about your brand, you care about your audience, you care about trust. You don't want to, I do think there is such a thing as like over pitching or over promotion. But to me, I just like to crank up the value as high as possible. Like the value is so high, the pitches, if you are so minimal compared to that value. So yeah, do you have to do it in every video? I don't think so. But we'll sometimes joke if we didn't, and then we look back and we're like, great, got 550,000 views. Like that would have been nice if we would have had a call to action in there. A lot of it is, it's kind of like dating and relationships in a way, and marriage. Like you could overdo it. Like we live in Las Vegas, right? And so you could overdo it. This happens maybe a lot where you like meet someone, you're like, hey, nice to meet you. Want to get married? And I suppose that happens there, but it's a little fast for most people. So other than that, it's like, hey, nice to meet you. What's your name? Should we go on a date? Maybe another date, eventually get engaged. That's sort of what I think about in business, is sort of like someone's just kind of on the outskirts watching some of your videos, wanting, I don't want to give you my contact information, but over time they trust you a little bit more. And I feel like email is getting engaged, and then purchasing a product is like getting married. But that is a journey if it's healthy typically, and it could be a different pace for other people. It may be that Vegas speed where someone's like, clearly Audrey knows what she's talking about. I just met her. I need the Zone 9 thing. And they go from like not knowing you to getting married to buy your product in literally 5 minutes. Others, it takes longer. So it's kind of a dance and sort of a tension to be managed more than a problem to be solved.
Yeah, that makes sense.
One other thing is we'll look at, vidIQ sponsored today's video, and I put in Zone 9B gardening into the daily ideas. Do any of these? You probably made all these, but maybe not. Like, so how to grow plants in Zone 9B garden, the Pareto principle for YouTube. That's kind of weird. Okay. So how to grow vegetables indoor, garden like a pro, how to garden in different zones, how to grow plants in Zone 9B garden. These are all pretty basic. You've done all these?
I've done them, but not that exact like video title. So that's, I guess, a question I sort of had was, at what point, because even though I have videos that have a lot of those points, is there a certain point like in YouTube where you, even as long as you change up something, is it okay to do multiple videos on essentially the same topic, like cover different search terms, but change up your video slightly?
It's a great question. And I think that, yes, I think that too many people are afraid of repeating themselves. I think the goal is actually is not to constantly try to say new things. The goal is actually try to say the same things in new ways.
Yeah.
Fresh angle, fresh thumbnail, fresh title, fresh nuance, fresh season. But to some point, you're the expert. I would imagine though that, the fundamentals of Zone 9A gardening are somewhat consistent, but, and here, my favorite example of this actually would be Dave Ramsey. Like Dave Ramsey gets a lot of critique. He teaches finances, teaches people to cut up their credit cards, teaches people to get out of debt. He's been doing it for like 30 years. He's been on the radio. His YouTube channel is getting 13 million views a month. His live stream channel is getting 3 million views a month. Other personalities. A lot of critics and cynics will be like, Dave's information's not that good. Dave just repeats himself the same time. And you're like, of course he does. There's only 7 baby steps. Like it's the same baby steps. There's like nothing even really that new. But what's so funny about the critics and the cynics is you're like, Dave's built an absolute empire and he's transforming millions of people's lives. So while someone on the sidelines could critique and say it's too simple or you're repeating yourself or whatever, if someone knows you're repeating yourself, you should say thank you. If they comment, they are like, didn't you already make this video? You should be like, thank you. Thanks for paying so much attention, because clearly you're a super fan, but the world is so much in need of good information and there's so many more people to reach that you want to be, when you have a topic like the fact, like Zone 9B is your search term, you should triple how much you're talking about it. But then the key, and like what I took how to grow plants in Zone 9B garden, and I threw it in the AI title recommendations. The key could be to just find like fresh angles, like secrets to thriving in your Zone 9B garden. Perhaps a really fresh thumbnail where you think about like kind of fresh way of reinventing how your thumbnails look a little bit. Now, maybe you got to be on brand, but I was thinking you got to, do your own style. But I always like to study thumbnails. I was looking at Evan Carmichael's thumbnails, and he's got this kind of like this new people-centered, like a galaxy behind them. And maybe this is, you hire this out, like you find somebody who could help you with thumbnails or whatever. But imagine if you want to talk about it switching up the look of things, if, Audrey's in the center, slightly airbrushed, and there's a magical superhero explosion of abundant fruit and vegetables around you, says, do this. You know what I mean? It's like a whole fresh take. And then the title is Secrets of Thriving in Your Zone 9B Garden, or, transform your. And so these was also just, what are we talking about? We're talking about fresh innovation with kind of the titles, the thumbnails, the hook, but then the points. And this is really meta, describing what a lot of people that are super fans of Think Media, they might be like, Sean, I swear you've made the same video a lot of times. So be like, why would I say new things when the principles that work, So there's a lot of tips on YouTube, but at some point, like I shouldn't go be making up new stuff. You're just finding new ways to package. We'll end on this. I learned a big lesson from toothpaste. And, I'll go to Target and I'll be looking at the toothpaste aisle, and I'm like Crest or Colgate, and I'll look at the label and it'll say new and improved. First observation, there's actually no way for something to be new and improved, because if it's improved, it means it's old. Because if it's brand new, it can't be improved yet. So actually the new and improved statement is a lie. Like that's already, so it says new and improved. That's actually impossible. But what actually is it? It's marketing. Secondly, are you actually saying the toothpaste is new? Toothpaste hasn't changed in 100 years. Like there's nothing actually new. Now, admittedly, there's probably some level of where they need to have, of course, integrity with that. And why is it new? It's because they added charcoal. That's a big trend. Why is it new? It's because they tweaked one ingredient. Why is it new? But what do people that are marketing products understand? They understand that people love novelty. They love new. So when you can you can add a module to your Zone 9, now it's new and improved. You're like, oh, but is it improved? And it is it new? Well, it's the new version. It's the new look. But everybody listening to this that wants to sell something, build something, you want to tap into that, because when we're shopping, like we would rather buy the new Colgate rather than the old Colgate, just because it's something that we're into. We love new stuff, new car smell, new shoes. We want something that's new. So all of that, I don't remember what my point was, but I guess my point is it was coming back to just finding, I think, great content creators. It's not enough, I think, to just repackage something and have it be stale and old. I think the goal is to actually get fresh inspiration, get a new illustration that unlocks understanding what it means to garden in Zone 9B. Get a new illustration, get a new story, get a new way to frame it, get a new way to kind of package it, get a new way to put a thumbnail on it, get a new way to put a title on it, and then do that 1,000 times. That's, I think, where the innovative channel that is a gardening competitor, where you will go beyond them versus what they're doing. And at the end of the day, chances are you versus the other gardening tips person, this could be pretty similar. So the difference, like as far as what the advice is, the difference, right, is going to really come down to some of that online marketing mastery, understanding maybe some of the language or creativity or packaging. Ultimately, we're looking for fresh creativity, maybe in the way that the video is structured, maybe in the way that you try something a little bit different. You're doing the same thing because there's basic information that people need, but you are packaging it in new ways. If you enjoyed this podcast and are ready for some deep dive YouTube strategy, just go to thinkmasterclass.com to get access to my 1-hour on-demand YouTube strategy class. You'll be looking over my shoulder as I share my best tips, and you can watch it on demand right now at thinkmasterclass.com.